Here's a little review of our first year with the wood stove here in the city. And we have an oil-fired warm air furnace. So this is an add-on after a renovation where we did some great insulation and air sealing and thought we'd enjoy having the stove here in the city. So this is a Jotul F100. It's quite a small stove, as you can see. It just comes up to my knee. But it seems to be adequate for our small city house. We bought it for the quality of a cast iron stove that radiates heat so well, and it has a great reputation. So there are a few things we got with the stove right off the bat. One is this Eco fan from Lee Valley. It doesn't move a whole lot of air, but it does move some air, and it works sort of like magic, generating energy just from the heat from the stove. The other thing we got is this cast iron kettle from Amazon that releases moisture into the air. It boils off. Moisture seems essential when you have a wood stove to try to preserve some humidity in the house, because otherwise it'll dry out. A few other things we got. One is a ash shovel, and it's a short, lightweight one. It doesn't have much of an angle here, so you can easily go in and scoop ashes. And we scoop those into a bucket that I also got from Amazon. Bottom double layer bucket with a false bottom to prevent hot coals from burning through. And it's important to have something safe like that. It has a cover as well, so when we scoop ashes, the ashes don't get out into the room. It's important to have a good hearth, of course. This is just drywall, which I thought if we faced this with stone, some kind of stone, it would reduce the clearances or give us some kind of a safety margin. But according to our WETT certified installer, he said it doesn't make any difference, that anything that's affixed to a combustible wall is considered a combustible surface. So adding stone wouldn't give us any clearances, and the drywall is as safe as anything. I found for the first few weeks I was constantly feeling the drywall to see how hot it would get, worried that there might be fire hazard, but it's absolutely not a concern. I don't even think about it anymore. This stove has a double wall chimney as well, double thickness, with air space. It goes in here and out the top. That gives you extra clearance, and it's a safety thing. Important to have a little brush around. A plastic handle one probably isn't the best, but it's good to have this to sweep up. When the stove is cool, you sweep up some ashes on the front, around the floor. And you gotta have a poker, of course, to move logs. This is just an old hand-forged one. Works great. And the number one safety thing, in my opinion, is a welder's glove. With this, you can reach into the stove. You can, even when it's incredibly hot like this, you can move things around if you have to. Or if a log were to fall out, you could grab it and put it back in without burning yourself. So a welder's glove is probably the number one safety thing to have with a wood stove. Of course, just around the corner we have a fire extinguisher as well, so that's good to have. And our house has carbon monoxide detectors and several smoke detectors. Overall, it's a very safe setup. I'm comfortable and happy with it as far as safety goes. I don't mind putting logs in there and leaving the house. I don't have any concerns whatsoever. And we're very safety conscious at all times. So we bought just a cord of wood. This Jotul, the manual says it'll take 16-inch logs, but 16 inches is really from edge to edge. It's almost impossible to get logs in there easily. So we went with 12-inch logs. They seem adequate and easy to put in. You can put them in at a bit of an angle to get an easier burn, and they're fine. So I think we'll stick with 12-inch logs from now on. To clean the glass, I just use a scouring pad, a metal scouring pad with a bit of water. I don't rub it hard. I just give it a little wipe, and the glass cleans up well. As far as burning goes, well, you can see it's not roaring here. The draft is about halfway, so if I turn it up, that stove is going to pick up, the fire will pick up, and it'll get too hot. I'll have to turn it down again. So it's pretty easy to regulate. Once in a while, I'll open the door and I can feel cold air coming down the chimney. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because the furnace is running and exhausting air from the house. Maybe it's just the barometric pressure. I don't know what it is. It's very rare. It might happen once every 3 weeks, and in that case, if I light a fire, the smoke will actually come out into the room. So what I'll do is take a bit of newspaper, light it on fire, throw it in there, try to regulate the draft so that no smoke comes out. And with 2 or 3 little balls of paper, it eventually heats up the chimney enough that it gets a draft. And again, that's very rare. Besides that, we're super happy with the draw on the stove and the way it burns. You can get this roaring hot if you want, or turn it down pretty low. Again, it's a small stove and it's low capacity, so it's not adequate to heat a big space or a house that's drafty or cold. I would go with a bigger stove, but for a small space or a well insulated house, it's just great. The burn time is going to be shorter than a bigger stove, but you know, half the fun is sitting around and maintaining the stove anyway, so it's not that big a deal. And with a backup heat source or a primary heat source, it's not a concern. We will have gone through a full cord over the winter here. We're at 45 degrees north latitude on the east coast of Canada. So it's been a pretty mild winter, and we will have burnt every last bit of a full cord, plus a few extra logs I had laying around. So I would say this is in this area with this stove and my house here, we are a 1.5 cord season. Would definitely cover things off, no problem. For lighting the stove, I use these little fibrous briquettes that are soaked in paraffin, I guess. You could use any kind of fire starter. I've stopped trying to split up a big pile of kindling and with tinder and stuff. It's just too much work. So I drop one of those briquettes in the clean stove, make a little log cabin structure out of kindling that is maybe, you know, this size, and just forget about it. It'll burn and catch, and you get a nice bed of embers within 15 minutes. And then I lay my fire with bigger wood, I guess. And you know, as soon as there's an adequate bed of coals, you can start throwing big chunks on. As long as you have enough air, you watch the air and make sure it burns. You can see it's getting hot now, so I'll turn it down a bit just to slow down the flames, and you just regulate it that way. Anyways, we're super happy with our Jotul F100, and we're enjoying every day with it.